Hello guys, in today's video, I would like to discuss about my second beginner guide, which covers the general build for all characters from skill and equipment to monsterling. Additionally, I will also provide some additional tips to help you improve your character strength. Timestamps are available in the description in case you would like to skip to a specific part. So when upgrading your character skill, the first thing you need to know is the character's role and playstyle. If a character requires a high on-field time and serves as your main DPS, such as fighters, destroyer, and sometimes assassins, it is highly recommended to upgrade all of their skill including their basic attack. On the other hand, if your character is a hit-and-run sub-DPS or support unit, you should only focus on upgrading specific skill that increase their buff or debuff effect or have the highest damage multipliers. For example, if your team consists of Esther, Flare, and G1, both of Esther and Flare is your main DPS, so they will have high on-field time. Therefore, you should spend a lot of skill material to upgrade their skill without hesitation. On the other hand, G1 is a support character with a very little on-field time. Since her buff only provide a fixed amount and do not scale with her skill level, while her skill upgrade only increase her skill damage multiplier, you shouldn't waste material on her unless you are aware. If you want to upgrade her, you can prioritize on which skill with the highest multiplier or skill that you use the most. In summary, if a character is a main DPS who needs significant on-field time, they will require heavy investment in all skill including their basic attack. For sub-DPS unit with short on-field time, you can be more selective and can even skip their basic attack depending on your rotation. Finally, if a support character's buff or debuff don't scale with their skill level, you should keep your investment to a minimum. Regarding the character's equipment, you likely already know that 4-star and 5-star equipment always come with a set effect which must be equipped on the right character to be fully utilized. Generally, there are only two things you need to be wary of, which is the element of the effect and its trigger condition. The first thing you need to do is match the equipment effect element with your character's element. Next is consider the trigger condition. If the equipment's effect can be triggered with just basic attack, special skill, switch skill, or ultimate skill, it is simple and not confusing, right? But what if the set effect requires a support skill, takeout skill, and certain elemental affliction to trigger? This is where you have to double check, because not every character can use this skill or apply elemental affliction to enemy. You can identify if a character can use a support skill or takeout skill by checking their switch skill description, while elemental affliction can come from any skill, including their switch skill. The difference between switch skill, takeout skill, and support skill is switch skill is used automatically the moment the character enters the field. Takeout skill is used automatically after the character is switched out by other character. While support skill only activates when a certain trigger condition is met. They will show up to use the support skill then retreat. Now, once you have confirmed your set effect is used by a suitable character, the next thing is looking at the equipment stat. For the first three pieces, usually there are no limitation on who can use them. You can simply hunt for the best offensive stats such as crit rate, crit damage, and flat attack. The only problem is the last piece, because you should pay attention to the raw proficiency stat. This stat can increase your character's damage only if the raw proficiency stat matches the equipped character's class. For example, if it provides an assassin stat but you equip it to a destroyer, it will indeed increase their assassin's proficiency, but it will not be converted into suppression's damage boost. This is because the destroyer class only specializes in neutralization damage boost. In summary, when you want to use an equipment toward a character, pay attention to the set effects element and trigger condition, as well as the last piece's role proficiency. While for the rest, just find the best stat for your character like crit rate, crit damage, and attack. Some characters might also need different stats too. For example, Reina needs at least 10,000 max HP to get her maximum neutralization damage boost from her passive skill. Next up is how to choose the best Monsterling. The first slot of the Monsterling is the most important one because you must only use a Monsterling with link chain available in here. This is because only the Monsterling with link chains equipped in this specific spot can be summoned onto the battlefield to assist you. While the other two slots are more flexible, you can use Monsterling with or without link chain, it doesn't matter, since even if they have link chain active, they cannot be summoned if they are equipped in these two secondary spots. Next thing you have to pay attention is the rank effect. This effect is different for each species and its effect will increase as you raise the Monsterling rank. Therefore, you need to make sure your character can actually exploit that specific effect or element. After you choose a Monsterling species with a suitable effect for your character, the next thing you have to choose is the Monsterling type. There are 3 Monsterling types available, which are Attack, Defense, and HP. Attack type Monsterling will provide more attack stat for your character as you upgrade them, while Defense type will provide more defense, and HP type will provide more HP. Fortunately, according to a recent developer note, the Monsterling type category will be removed, and every Monsterling will be set to attack type stat, so you don't have to worry about this variation anymore. This change will be implemented on the April 23rd maintenance. Lastly is the Monsterling traits. High-grade Monsterling can provide more traits than a low-grade Monsterling. In order to choose the best traits easily, all you need is to filter the Monsterling element based on your character's element, Monsterling class based on your character's class. For example, if they are fighters, then choose Brawl damage boost. If a destroyer, then choose neutralization damage boost. If an assassin, then choose suppression damage boost. And if a support, then choose support damage boost. Lastly, don't forget the crit rate, crit damage, damage boost against normal enemy and boss, skill cooldown reduction for faster rotation, elemental weakness damage boost, and attack stat. As for the elemental resistance, defense, and HP stat, you can ignore them unless your character specifically need them for their skill or damage scaling. The only way to obtain equipment is by crafting or fighting high-level bosses in endgame modes. Some equipment crafting material can be obtained from daily bosses that you can find across the map. If you see an icon like this, make sure to fight them every day. Some of them can drop 3-star gear and their crafting materials, while the others can even drop 4-star gear and their crafting materials. Some equipment materials can only be obtained through daily requests. You have probably noticed that some of the boss in this request board can also be found directly on the map, while the others will never appear unless you accept their specific requests. Therefore, make sure to avoid accepting any requests for bosses that are already available on the map unless you really need their material. If you accept a request for a boss that is already available on the map, this can allow you to fight them twice in a day. For example, after defeating a boss on the map, you can accept a request for that same monster and it will respawn immediately for a second fight. However, since these bosses already respawn daily on the map anyway, I highly recommend focusing your request on the bosses that don't exist on the map instead. This kind of bosses can also be found in the Dimensional Rift in case you have unlocked the game mode. Lastly is the higher tier equipment that can only be obtained by fighting bosses in Conquest mode. You have to fight bosses at level 10 or above for a small chain to obtain their crafting material, while level 13 or above to have a small chain of obtaining the equipment as a direct drop. Since these drop rates are very low, always remember to spend your conquest ticket every day after the day reset to maximize your chance. Regarding link chain monstering, all of them are categorized as boss monsters, starting from the weakest bosses that you can easily encounter on the map, to those you can only find by accepting daily requests or entering the Dimensional Rift, and finally, the endgame bosses that can only be fought in Conquest mode. You can craft link chain with this monster only if certain criteria are met. First, you need to capture at least one monsterling of the targeted monster. Second, you must obtain the required material to activate the link chain. As for the third is, your Nyanko's level must be high enough. The first two criteria can easily be met by simply defeating the bosses until you obtain the drops and monsterling, except Conquest bosses only drop link chain material at level 10 or above. While the final step is the most challenging one, which is leveling your Nyanko. Since every monster and boss on the map only respawn after the daily reset, make sure to farm them every day to level up your Nyanko quickly to activate link chain that require high level Nyanko. Additionally, some monsters can only be unlocked through mutation. You can always find other recipes for monsterling mutation in Taichara website, Fusion Tool, or zerolab.gg, Fusion Calculator. From here, you can search for the specific recipes for boss mutation, but keep in mind that bosses usually require a mutant monsterling as their mutation material, so make sure to create the required mutant monsterling first before you can mutate the boss and unlock their link chain. Besides, you can make your character stronger by leveling and upgrading gear and monsterling. Always remember that you can also use food buff to strengthen your character. This buff can active not only in story mode and exploration, but also in endgame mode like Conquest and Dimensional Rift. You can get food recipes from this kind lady here, or by completing guidebook quests. Food buff from high-grade side dishes can also provide capture proficiency to help your Nyanko capture higher level monster. As for Conquest and Dimensional Rift tokens, the recommended rewards you should exchange from Rift Shop is obviously the Compass. As for Conquest, you should keep your tokens until you have unlocked this equipment chest by defeating level 10 bosses. This equipment chest can provide at least the rare materials for crafting 5-star equipment, unlike the monsterling chest that can only give you a low-grade monsterling if you are unlucky. Lastly, if you are lacking characters upgrade materials, always remember to clear the guidebook quests. This will allow you to obtain a lot of characters upgrade materials and Starlight Crystal. Alright, I think that's all for now. If you found my content really helpful, you can support me from this Netmarble content creator website by searching for my YouTube channel and click support. The link to the website is in my video's description below. Your support will be so much appreciated. Thank you for watching, see you next time, cheers!